Poverty is a curse. It is a disease. It is always the result of spiritual warfare. That it is not God's design for his people to be broke, period. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse number 9, here's what it says. But as touching brotherly love, ye need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves were taught of God to love one another. And indeed, ye do it towards all brethren, which are in all Macedonia. But we beseech you, brethren, that ye increase more and more. That you increase more and more. Okay, let's keep reading. And that you study to be quiet, and to do your own business, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that ye may walk honestly toward them that are without. That's paying your bills on time, not lying about the check being in the mail. That ye may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. That's God's plan, that you study to be quiet, do your own business, working with your own hands as we commanded you, that you may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. This whole idea that to be a follower of Christ, you're supposed to be broke as a joke and ready to choke, and drive a rattletrap car and wear hand-me-down clothes, it's a satanic lie. And the reason it's a satanic lie is because Satan knows he can't block your blessing from you, but he can mental block you from your blessing. He can make you not want it because you think there's something inherently wrong with it. But I got news for you. This whole idea that there's something inherently wrong with making money is satanic. And this whole idea that followers of Christ are supposed to be broke is a satanic lie that's been propagated by religion, but it is not in the Bible, period, right? But Myron, the Bible says you can't serve God in money. Well, it doesn't say that. It says you can't serve God in mammon. And mammon is not money. Mammon is the false god of prosperity. It cannot be contradicting the fact that the Bible says that the hand of the diligent maketh rich, but the slothful shall be under tribute. So whatever the love of money is the root of all evil means, it's not contradicting that, it's supporting that. And so a misinterpretation will cause you to miss your blessing. So God's plan for us to not be poor, his ultimate cure for being poor, his perfect cure for being poor, is to have your own business. It says that you study to be quiet. The word study means be diligent to be quiet. Why does he tell us to be quiet? Because in all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lip lends only to penury. What does that mean? Don't talk about what you're gonna do, walk about what you're gonna do. Don't tell me what you're gonna do, show me what you did, right? So he's saying, stop talking and just go do the work. An ounce of proof is worth 1,000 pounds of promise, 10,000 pounds of promise, right? Everybody, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, show me, then talk about it. The Bible tells us in the Old Testament, in Ecclesiastes, it says that a dream cometh through a multitude of business. It tells us in the book of Proverbs, it says, seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men. Business is God's design for his people to create wealth. Entrepreneurship. One of the reasons why Jewish people are so rich is because they believe that. But a lot of Christians got their ideology from Catholicism about money, from Catholicism, which is a descendant of Roman mythology and Greek mythology. And so they bought into all these lies that the Bible never taught. What is the physical substance that represents wealth and has since the beginning of time? What is it? Gold. So one of the things about God you have to understand is that he does not change. In order for him to change, you'd have to learn something that he didn't know. And he can't learn something that he didn't know, so he has no reason to change. Are y'all tracking? Now we have to change, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And when I find out something new that I didn't know, now I got to do something different than I've been doing so I can get something different than I've been getting. But God don't have to do that. And so whatever God's original design for a thing was, that, or whatever, however God first used something in the Bible, that's his original design for that thing. So I was walking through my house one day, I was thinking, I wonder how many times gold is mentioned in the book of Genesis. And I thought, man, it's got to be in there 500 times. And I looked it up, it wasn't in there 500 times. It wasn't in there 100 times. It wasn't in there 50 times. It was in there exactly 8 times. Gold is in the book of Genesis 8 times. So what does that tell us? Well, what it tells us is that I should go and look and see how gold is being used in context in those 8 times God mentions it first in Genesis. When I did that, I was blown away. I was like, wait, what? Because the first time it's mentioned, it's in Genesis chapter 2. verse 11 and 12, and it was talking about the Garden of Eden. Y'all remember the Garden of Eden, right? How many people were in the Garden of Eden again? I forget. What was the population of the Garden of Eden? 2. What was the relationship of those 2 people? Husband and wife. Okay, there are 2 people, they're husband and wife, and wait a minute, there's more. God told them of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. They could have everything they needed to sustain life for free. Freely. They got everything for free. Okay, cool. So there's 2 people, everything's free, there's nothing for sale, there's nothing to buy. Why is he putting gold there in the Garden of Eden? Why is there gold in the Garden of Eden if there's nothing to buy? They don't have anything to spend it on. Everything's free. Why? Because God wanted us to know, I believe, that opulence and abundance are natural in the environment for the children of the King. Because the first time gold is mentioned in the Bible, it's mentioned as providence for God's people. Providence means to provide in advance. God put the gold there in the garden before he put the man there where the gold was. God put the work there in the garden itself to dress it and keep it before he put the man there to do the work. That's the first time it's mentioned. The second time gold is mentioned, it's in Genesis chapter 13, in conjunction with a man named Abram. After God told Abram, if you leave your country and you leave your kindred, you leave your father's house, I'm gonna bless you in ways you can't bless yourself, make you something you can't make yourself, give you something you can't get yourself. I'm gonna take the source of your shame, make it the source of your fame, and then you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. When God said that, Abram said, I'm out of here. And he left. It says, right after it says that, it says, so Abram departed. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and gold. So the trick question I have for you this morning is, was Abram rich? No, he was very rich. If wealth is such a curse, why is God giving it to Abram? Abram is the patriarch of the faith. He's the father of the faithful. He's the friend of God. Myron, it's not talking about money inheritance. It's talking about a godly heritage. That sounds good if you want to make an excuse for yourself. House and riches are the inheritance of fathers, and a prudent wife is from the Lord. What does that mean? Well, it means God's design is for fathers to give their children house and riches. How much better would your life be if when you became an adult and got married, your parents gave you a house and some riches? You'd be living a different kind of life right now, wouldn't you? So I'm gonna quote a friend of mine, Dr. Sonia. Here's what she says. You may not come from a wealthy family, but a wealthy family should come from you. And by the way, anybody can do that. The third time gold is mentioned, it's mentioned in Genesis chapter 25, when Eliezer goes to get a wife for Isaac. And here's what it says. It says, Abraham said, I don't want my son to take a wife from these people around here. I want you to go back to my homeland, find a wife for my son. So Eliezer packs up the camels, packs up the stuff, heads out. He stops by a well, he's thirsty. His camels are thirsty. Why? Because it's in the desert. He prays, dear Lord, bless my master Abraham. And when somebody comes by, when a woman comes to draw water out of this well, and I ask her, could I have some water? If she says, let me get you some water and some water for your camels, let that be the one. That's a fairly specific prayer. So here comes Rebecca. Ma'am, do you mind if I have a drink of water? She said, well, let me get you some water. Let me get some water for your camels too. The reason he prayed that prayer is because he wanted to find a wife who was worth his master's son. And that's a way for her to prove it. Somebody who's willing to go the extra mile. Isn't that what it's about, being a spouse, being a husband, being a wife? Like going the extra mile for the person you're married to. And then Eliezer gave gold gifts to her mother and her brothers. Why? Because it was used as proof of God's blessing on God's people. Proof of God's blessing on God's people. See, here's what we gotta do. We gotta understand that God's design for your abundance is not a government handout. God's design for your abundance is not for you to go rob a bank or embezzle money or cheat somebody or make somebody a promise and they give you money and then you don't keep the promise. That's not God's design for your wealth and your abundance. God's design for your abundance is that you start a business that creates value for other people, that they value more than they value the money that they are paying you for it. That's God's design. And when you do things God's way, it always works. Why? He's the one who set the whole thing up. That you study to be quiet and do your own business, working with your own hands as we commanded you, that you may walk honestly toward them and toward that. I remember what it was like when I used to be so poor, I'd have to decide whether I was going to pay the gas bill this month or the electric bill. Am I going to pay the phone bill or am I going to pay the light bill? Am I going to pay the phone bill or am I going to pay my rent? I remember those days like they were yesterday. I don't have those decisions anymore. I don't ever have to wonder who I'm going to pay. I don't pay everybody I owe, and as soon as I owe it to them, and sometimes early. You know why? Because I can. And you know why I can? Because I studied to be quiet and to do my own business and work diligently with my own hands as I was commanded. And now I can walk honestly toward them that are without, and all of my car payments are on auto pay, and my mortgages are on auto pay. This whole idea that you're supposed to be broke as a joke, ready to choke, is a satanic lie. Don't buy it. It costs too much. If God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, surely he can put steak on my table sometime. That's God's perfect cure for being poor. If you will do it, it'll do stuff for you that you cannot do for yourself.